The call came at 2:47 a.m., and Sarah knew before she even looked at the phone. There's a particular kind of silence that precedes devastating news, a hollow quality to the air that makes your chest tighten before your mind can catch up. By 3:15 a.m., she was standing in a hospital corridor that smelled of antiseptic and sorrow, staring at a doctor whose eyes told her everything his words would soon confirm. Michael was gone. 42 years old, a heart attack in his sleep, no warning, no goodbye. Just gone. The next 72 hours blurred into a nightmare of phone calls, funeral arrangements, and casseroles from neighbors who didn't know what else to offer. Sarah moved through it all like a ghost, her 2 children clinging to her like she was the last solid thing in a world that had suddenly turned to quicksand. Emma, who was 7, kept asking when Daddy was coming home. 4-year-old Noah had stopped talking altogether. The funeral was on a Thursday. By Friday evening, Sarah found herself alone in a house that felt simultaneously too large and suffocatingly small. Her mother had returned to Phoenix. Her sister had a family of her own to get back to. The neighbors had stopped ringing the doorbell. And now, as twilight painted the living room in shades of gray, Sarah stood at the window watching her children play in the backyard, wondering how she was supposed to do this. Any of this. All of this. That's when she saw him. David Martinez, the single dad from 3 doors down, was helping Noah retrieve a ball that had rolled into his yard. She'd seen David around the neighborhood for the past year, ever since he'd moved in with his daughter, Lily. He was always polite, always waving, occasionally making small talk about the weather or the way the city never fixed that pothole on the corner. She knew the basics. His wife had died 2 years ago, cancer, and he was raising Lily on his own while working from home as some kind of software consultant. David handed the ball back to Noah, ruffled his hair gently, and started walking back toward his house. Sarah watched him go, and something inside her chest cracked open. Before she could think better of it, before fear or pride or common sense could stop her, she was opening the front door and stepping onto the porch. David. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, fragile and uncertain. He turned, surprised, then offered a gentle smile. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I wanted to give you space, but I've been thinking about you and the kids. She wrapped her arms around herself against the evening chill. Can you stay tonight? The words hung in the air between them. David's eyes widened slightly, and Sarah immediately felt her face flush with embarrassment. It sounded wrong, desperate, inappropriate. But before she could backtrack, could stammer out an explanation or retreat back into her house, David nodded. Of course, he said simply. Let me just get Lily settled with Mrs. Chen next door. I'll be over in 20 minutes. Sarah hadn't known what she was asking for, not really. She just knew that the thought of another night in that house, listening to the silence where Michael's breathing used to be, watching her children's confused grief while drowning in her own, felt impossible to bear alone. David showed up with a grocery bag in one hand and a worn backpack over his shoulder. I hope you don't mind, he said, unpacking the bag on her kitchen counter. I brought stuff for breakfast. I remember those first weeks after Lisa died. Nobody tells you that you'll forget to eat, that feeding yourself feels like an insurmountable task. He didn't ask her questions. Didn't offer platitudes about time healing wounds or Michael being in a better place. Instead, he simply existed. Alongside her grief, he sat at the kitchen table and helped Emma with a puzzle while Sarah stared at nothing. When Noah finally spoke for the first time in days, asking if David knew any dinosaur facts, David launched into an enthusiastic discussion about velociraptors that made the little boy's eyes light up for the first time since his father died. Around 9 o'clock, after the children were in bed, Sarah and David sat in the living room with cups of tea neither of them was really drinking. The silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of 2 people who understood that sometimes words were inadequate. Why did you say yes? Sarah finally asked. You don't really know me. You have your own daughter to worry about. You could have just, I don't know, offered to bring over a casserole like everyone else. David looked down at his tea, considering. When Lisa died, everyone was very kind. Very helpful. For about a week. Then they went back to their lives, which is natural and normal and exactly what they should have done. But the grief doesn't end in a week. It doesn't even end in a month. And there were these nights where Lily was asleep and I was alone with everything I'd lost, and I remember thinking that what I needed wasn't someone to fix it or say the right thing. I just needed someone to sit with me in it. To confirm that I was still real, still here, even though the person who had made me feel most alive was gone. Tears slipped down Sarah's cheeks. I don't know how to do this. Nobody does, David said quietly. That's the secret they don't tell you. We're all just making it up as we go along. That night, David slept on the couch. But he was there when Sarah woke at 3 a.m. from a nightmare, there to sit with her in the kitchen while she cried for the first time since the funeral. He was there when Emma came downstairs at dawn because she'd heard her mother crying, and he knew enough to step back and let them hold each other while also knowing when to offer to make pancakes for everyone. David didn't stay just that one night. Over the following weeks, he became a steady presence, not inserting himself into their grief but creating a quiet space alongside it. He showed Sarah how to handle the school pickup routine alone, shared the contact for the grief counselor who'd helped Lily, and taught her the trick of setting small, achievable goals for each day. Today, we're going to take showers and open the mail, he'd say. Everything else is extra credit. 3 months after Michael's death, Sarah stood in her backyard watching Noah and Emma play with Lily, their laughter bright against the autumn sky. David stood beside her, hands in his pockets, and Sarah realized that grief hadn't disappeared. It probably never would. But she'd learned to carry it differently, to make room for it alongside joy and hope and the simple gift of tomorrow. Thank you, she said, for staying. David glanced at her, something warm in his eyes. Thank you for asking. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit we can't do it alone. Two families, both broken by loss, had found something neither expected in each other's company. Proof that kindness still existed, that humanity still mattered, and that sometimes the most profound love stories aren't about romance at all. They're about showing up, staying present, and reminding each other that even in our darkest moments, we don't have to face the night alone.